So everyone's like, oh, everyone's copying the Whopper Plopper, blah, blah, blah. No, everyone's copying lures that have been around for literally almost 100 years. Like, come on. Welcome, everyone, to another amazing episode of the Average Ontario Anglers Fishing Podcast. Today, we have a really cool episode. It's all about something that it's all about something that all sane people really like doing, and that is fishing topwater lures for bass. We're going to kind of focus on bass today just because, it's summertime, right, Andrew? And what are you thinking about?
I'm thinking about topwater bass.
Oh, yes, that's the right answer. So if you're like Andrew and you're thinking about that, this episode is going to be perfect for you. But before we start this episode, we would just like to say this episode is actually brought to you by and sponsored by Lunker Hunt. And we're going to get into some of the cool lures that we've been using the last few years and one new one that we're really excited to talk about. But before we get into that, we have, as tradition states, an interesting fishing fact. And to handle that, we have the man with the new hat, Andrew.
Ah, yes. This hat is very nice and comfortable, too. Wouldn't you say, Jesse, also wearing the same hat?
Yes.
Shameless self-promotion.
We'll talk more about the hats later.
I've been compiling a list of these for a while now for this interesting fishing fact. It's all about folk cures. Now, I'm sure you may have heard of people being like, you don't need to go to that fancy doctor medical man. You can just go rub this aloe into your wound and it'll heal up better than ever. We're not here advocating for not going to see a health specialist, but there were a lot of, tried and true methods to look after a wound or to help first aid, especially in the bush where you don't have access to things like this. And so we're going to explore some folk cures and remedies. Some of them you might be like, I should try that. Probably most of them you should be like, I'm not doing that. That's kind of just a disclaimer to start it off.
Yes.
But the first one is cod liver oil. So I want you to picture this. It's a gray February morning. You're in Thunder Bay. You've got stiff knees. You've got a hacking cough. And your Oma says, time for your cod liver oil. You try to run, but your joints say otherwise. And she starts, spoon feeding you cod liver oil. The thought was taking a spoonful of cod liver oil daily will cure everything from rickets to bad moods. That was the thing. That was kind of like their multivitamin super cure. This first superfood, I guess, was cod liver oil. The next question we'll ask is, does it work? What do you think, Jesse?
Well, to be honest, I did for a while take fish oil pills. I don't know if it was cod liver oil. Maybe it was, but I'm not spoon feeding that. I was just swallowing it so I didn't have to taste it. I think it does work to a certain extent. Maybe not for everything.
Yeah, so it does have benefits. Cod liver oil is full of vitamin D and omega-3s. And so, in the wintertime, you get kind of down, you get that wintertime blues, right? That's often a vitamin D deficiency, is where you're not getting enough sunlight, which is where we primarily get it. So cod liver oil is kind of a great boost for that. So it can help boost your mood overall. And omega-3s are great for your joints, helps keep things lubricated, and among other things. Omega-3 is good in your diet. What's better today? Fish oil capsules.
Yes, I agree.
There's less trauma and you get the same benefits. So we're kind of going to follow that same structure for these other cures. This one here, I want you to picture you're fishing near a culvert outside Windsor. You land a big old channel cat, but while unhooking it, you slice your thumb. Ow! Your buddy yells, rub the slime on it. You stare at him like it just suggested mouth-to-mouth with a snapping turtle. The thought was that if you smear catfish slime on cuts or burns, it'll help heal them. Do you think it'll work, Jesse?
It just sounds like a great way to get an infection.
Yeah, it doesn't really work. It's not really safe. The better option for today is you clean the wound and use real antiseptic. You leave the fish slime on the fish, not in your first aid kit. That's what I'd say. Next one is you're camping near Algonquin Park and someone spills boiling percolator water on their hand while making their morning coffee.
Ow!
No first aid kit, but you do have a clean lake trout sitting on a rock.
How convenient.
Should you wrap your wounds in the fish skin to promote healing? What do you think?
I feel like
your silence and face spoke volumes, but go ahead.
It sounds like a bad idea, but I know when people burn victims, they get they were using fish skin on top of their skin to help it heal. or some kind of skin from an animal. I think it was like a fish. So I think like the idea behind it probably works, but I feel like it also seems kind of sketchy. So I don't know.
It does work if it is clean. Now, again, if you have a better option like gauze and burn gel, if you have a proper first aid kit, of course use that. But if you are a completely backwoods and you got no other options and you have a fresh caught, fresh clean knife, you fillet that skin off, it might help alleviate that burn, help it heal if you're stuck in there for a long period of time and in a survival situation.
You're also just becoming, a little bit easier to find for the random black bear that's wandering around.
So the next one, you're visiting your nephew up in Sudbury, and he keeps waking up with wild dreams about falling into a frozen lake. Your Temiskaming-born auntie says, put a dried smelt under his pillow. Works every time. The thought was, a dried fish under the pillow wards off nightmares and evil spirits. What do you think?
That sounds like total
bunkus.
Yes.
So it can work only if the smell of a dried fish helps keep you awake at night. But a better option is a white noise machine, some warm milk, or just better sleep hygiene. Like do something to improve your sleep in a different way. I got a couple more here. I have a bunch. This is going to be like a theme for like later as well, but I'll do a couple more today. So let's picture yourself. You're at a vintage shop up in Peterborough, and you spot a jar labeled Sturgeon Gold. The clerk winks and says, old fertility remedy, swim bladders. And then you just kind of back out of the store slowly, obviously. So the cure was dried swim bladders are believed to enhance reproductive power. What do you think?
It's like the freshwater seahorse. Like in Japan, they have like seahorse powder. They're like, it's a ground up seahorse.
Now we have aphrodisiacs. I mean, look at oysters are known to be an aphrodisiac.
Sure. I don't know. That just sounds made up.
Yeah, that's true. There's zero evidence to support that.
Okay.
What's better? Talk to a doctor. There's specialists for this. I hear 1 in 4 men may suffer. No.
1 in 4 men probably shouldn't kill a sturgeon tomorrow.
Now for our next show sponsor. Ask your doctor about fish bladders. Last one for today. You are down in Scarborough in a grocery store and you chip a molar biting into a too crunchy fish ball. That hurts. I don't like dentistry stuff. But in desperation, you spot a smoked eel in the fridge aisle and think, why not? The thought for the cure is you wrap smoked eel skin around your face to draw out tooth pain. What do you think?
No.
Yeah, maybe like a warm smoked eel helps just because it's like a warm face cloth. But yeah, it doesn't help. So what do you think the better option would be, Jesse?
Going to the dentist.
And maybe some painkillers on the way. Yeah. Anywho, those are some folk cures. And like I said, I had a kick looking up some of these because there are some, I mean, we've all heard different expressions or sayings growing up, even stuff like about fishing, red sky at night, sailor's delight, red sky in the morning, sailor's warning. And he's always like, is there truth to these things? When I tell you some of these folk cures for getting diseased or hurt, I have never heard of them, but I'm glad I know them now.
I'm glad that I never knew them before. Thanks, Andrew.
You freak.
As always, Andrew bringing in the weird, interesting fishing fact. But you know what? A lot of you guys and girls like it, so we're going to keep on doing it. And next week, when I do one, we'll actually learn something. So this episode, like I mentioned, we're actually going to go into a bunch of different topwater lures that are very common for bass fishing. We're going to talk a little bit about our favorite ones, the best way to use them, the gear to use, different colors, stuff like that. We're going to go through a bunch of different categories of topwater lures for bass. But before we start the episode, we would just like to say, we'd like to thank all of our supporting Patreon members. Now, supporting Patreon members, what they do is they donate a few bucks every month to help cover the show cost. So if you find value in these podcasts and you enjoy them and listen to them every week, consider supporting us on Patreon. The link is always in the show notes for you guys. Now, we'd also like to say too, we're going to read some reviews later. So if you haven't wrote us a review, we highly recommend that you do so. It actually helps us rank higher, which helps us get really cool guests and sponsors. Like today, we're sponsored by Lunker Hunt, which is awesome. How do you feel about that, Andrew?
That sounds awesome. It sounds awesome. It is awesome. Also, you sound very professional. You're like, this is going on and we encourage you to do this. It just seems very out of place. Are you feeling okay today, Jesse? You seem too professional.
I'm trying to be professional, you know? But speaking of not being professional, look at this mouse. No, that is professional. So we actually get, quite a few sponsored requests, like brands that want us to talk about them on the podcast. We actually turn down a lot of them because it's just not stuff that's really applicable to fishing, or it's not a brand that we generally would use. But when Lunker Hunt came up to us, we were actually pretty happy because Lunker Hunt is one of those brands that we've actually been using for, I'd say, like a decade at least. Like some of Andrew's most classic weird lures that he uses, they're from Lunker Hunt. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen some of the Lunker Hunt lures. A lot of the times when I'm in Canadian Tire, which is usually a place like you're driving up to the cottage or camping and you're like, oh man, I forgot. Let's stop at Canadian Tire quick. There's always one, right? Even in the small little towns. And they have a nice fishing section usually. And Lunker Hunt lures, they have a lot of Lunker Hunt in there, right? So when they came out with the Dragonfly lure, it's a floating topwater lure. It has a foam butt and has little wings on it, and it actually floats. And when I saw that, I was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And then next thing I knew, Andrew bought one and he catches on it.
I remember you telling me, I'm pretty sure you were talking about, did you see that new lure that came out? I just pulled it out of my tackle box. I'm like, yeah, this one?
I was like, of course.
I tied that on that day, and fishing is one of those like tough topwater days where they were blowing up on frogs, but were just like tailing it or swatting at it. And they weren't aggressively eating the topwater. And so having something like a dragonfly that was essentially mimicking like a dying dragonfly on the surface, they come up underneath of it and they don't explode. They just kind of like slurp it off the surface. And I was like, wait, and it like swims away and then like crack it. And I outfished Jesse like 6-1 that day.
It was, yeah.
I only had a dragonfly and he couldn't get bites on the frogs.
I know, they wouldn't touch a frog. And one of the other lures that Lunker Hunt has as well is the spider. Mm-hmm. We've probably seen, videos of that on Instagram or YouTube. It's a little floating hollow, basically like a frog, like a whole body frog, but it's a little spider. It looks like a tarantula.
Yeah.
And the same thing. I'm like, that's dumb. I wouldn't use that. Of course, Andrew buys them and he slams fish on them.
Yeah. They have their purpose on certain days. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I feel with those two baits in particular, we're going to get more into some other Lunker Hunt lures, but the spider and the dragonfly, they're just different enough. I think on pressure water, they can make a difference. And also they're very subtle compared to a traditional topwater. That's why they probably on certain days just slam. But we're going to talk about one lure we're really excited about. We kind of showed it off. It's the new Lunker Hunt Forensi mouse. Mm-hmm. It's a very cool lure. We've already had a few days using it, a few trips, and we've caught more than a few fish on it. Especially Andrew actually caught the first day we went out, probably 6 or 7 bass on it.
Yeah.
I've caught about 2 or 3 on it. We're going to talk more about this in a bit, but this is actually one topwater lure that as soon as it came out like last year, I was like, I know Andrew's going to get like 5 of those. And we're always skeptical about lures. We're like, it's just another lure. Is it any better than what I'm already using? The answer to that question is yes. We're going to get into that in a bit. Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk a little bit about different lures. Now, we're not going to cover every single possible category of topwaters. We're just going to kind of cover the most popular ones. And then as we go through this, we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then at the end of the episode, we actually have some AOA Q&A when it comes to topwater. You guys send in some questions. I said, tell me a question, tell me your opinion. Some of them are just opinions, and I love that because I love hearing what people think. And we're going to tell you our opinions too. So I thought we'd start off with probably one of the most popular topwater lures of all time. They've been making them since the beginning of time. In fact, right after Noah's Ark, they were chucking them out there, man. Like they were using them back then.
He sent out the puddles, that raven and then a dove, and then as soon as the water started receding, he's like started flipping these things.
He's like, hand me that hula popper, man. Yeah, but we're talking about poppers, right? Now, you may think of some of your favorite poppers. I think the one that, especially if you're older, the one that you're probably thinking of is like the OG. The hula popper. Like the hula popper, that is classic with the cupped face. It's just a weird looking lure. I almost guarantee if your grandpa or your dad has a tackle box, I guarantee there's probably one of those in there. They catch fish. It's more of an old school lure. It's not something that I would throw as much anymore, but I guaranteed if you tied it on and used it, you'd catch fish on it just as well as the newer stuff. The newer stuff may have a little bit, might cast a little better or have, better hooks on it, but the hula popper is classic. Now, a little bit of history about the hula popper. Andrew, I'd like you to guess. You probably know this because you're into vintage lures, but what decade in the 1900s did the hula popper? It sounds so old. The 1900s. What decade did it come out in?
I think it was the 1940s.
Yep, 1941. So that lure has been around a heck of a long time. Now, what brand is it?
Hedden.
Nope, Fred Arbogast.
Arbogast.
The same guy that makes jitterbugs. The hula popper, 1941. This is one of my favorite patterns. It's just the leopard frog color. It's a frog color on top, white on the bottom. Doesn't matter. Probably not. But it's a classic popper. Other poppers that you may be familiar with is the chug bug. The storm rattle and chug bug. That's a classic.
The
people still use it today.
That's super
Yep.
popular.
I got one right here. Little pop R. Those are great. Right? That's
The first popper I ever bought.
Yep, same. Then, you can spend tons of money, right? Like here's a Mega Bass Pop Max. That's a more expensive bait, but a very cool bait.
Mm-hmm.
Every brand has poppers. Like guaranteed if a brand makes fishing lures, they probably have a topwater popper. And there's a reason for that, right, Andrew? They absolutely catch fish. Now, when it comes to fishing poppers, Andrew, what are you looking for when you're picking a popper, just in general purpose?
General purpose, I actually like my poppers and slightly on the smaller sides, like 2.5, 3 inches tops. And like you can get some that are 3.5, 4, but I find most of the time when I'm using a popper, I'm fishing smaller areas, pinpointing areas. Doesn't have to be heavy. I'm not launching it 500 feet out there. And so I just want something that has a dressed treble, has a nice splash, and ideally will want to sit tail down. That's what I'm looking for. And a nice, like I said, bite-sized size of like 2.5 inches is perfect.
Yeah, I think generally speaking, and again, there's always people that like to do whatever they want, but generally speaking, like Andrew said, I think poppers are more of a target fishing lure. It's not a lure that you're covering water with. You may think of a lure that you're going to cover water with, like a buzz bait. You're chucking that out, you're reeling it in, although you could, target cast that as well. Same like with a walking bait like a Zara Spook. That's a great bait just to whip out and just chuck it and then just work it back in and cover a lot of area. But a popper's like, oh, there's a log there. I'm going to whip a popper by and just pop it, right through the log. It's something like that. And I agree with the small size, although I have had some really good success on slightly bigger poppers. One of my favorite poppers is the Storm Arashi cover pop. It's not a giant popper, but it is a bigger popper. It has bigger hooks on it and a really big face. But one thing that I look for, and this particular popper does very well, is it walks. And me and Andrew got really into that a few years ago. The newer poppers, one thing that they're really good at compared to the older ones, like a hula popper, you're not going to get to walk. It's not going to walk. But a popper like the Arashi cover pop, or even this is another cool one, the Spro E series, which is the Essential series. It's kind of a longer popper. And what happens is on these poppers that walk, when you chuck them out, they're almost like a little walk the dog bait. You twitch the rod and it'll actually like pop back and forth. And it's a really cool action. It's not that typical like bloom, You can do that with that. Yep. If you give it a really nice pull, it'll bloop down. But if you give it really short taps of your rod, it'll actually walk back and forth. Now, the cool thing about that is, say you're fishing a spot and underneath the water there's a log there. And you whip your popper past it, 15, 20 feet past, you pop, pop, pop. And then when you get close to that spot, you can really just like walk it in place over that area. And your popper has a lot of disturbance and commotion, but it doesn't move forward very much. So you're causing a lot of disturbance, a lot of noise, a lot of, rattling, a lot of splashing, spitting, but it's not moving forward. It's like moving forward like only a few inches at a time instead of, like a foot when you jerk it down to plop it. Walking a bait like a popper, it is cool because it does allow you to cause a lot of extra disturbance, but you can also just fish it like a regular popper. That's why I kind of always lean to poppers that can walk over poppers that can't walk, because I have the ability to do both of those things, which is really cool. Poppers that walk really good, like we mentioned. I'm a really big fan of the Spro E-Pop, which is from their Essential series. These are like $10, $11. They come with Gamakatsu hooks on them, feathered treble. It's a really noisy popper. A lot of big rattles in it. Another one that me and Andrew are big fans of, the Mega Bass Pop Max. This is more of a bougie buy, right? But I think me and Andrew bought them. We're like, what the heck? We'll treat ourselves to a Mega Bass. And it's hard to go back to a popper once you use this. Like, these are really cool poppers.
I think that's the first Mega Bass I ever bought. And I do not regret it. Like, there have been some things I spent the money on some high-end bait. And I'm like that. I actually really like that popper a lot.
Yeah. I think when it comes to poppers, do the fish really see the detail in this megabass popper? Probably not. But the features that make this popper so good is it walks super good. It has super sharp hooks on it. It casts really far, and it actually has on the front, has these slits inside of the cupped mouth. So when you pop it, water shoots through these slits and it comes out the gills and creates this cool bubble trail behind the bait. Does that make a difference? I don't know, but it's super cool when you're working it in. And whenever I use this bait and the fish are on topwater, it's guaranteed catching. It's a super confidence bait. That being said, you don't have to spend $25 on a popper because a popper is a pretty basic bait. But if you're going to spend a lot of money in a popper, that's one. Another one, if you're going to spend a pretty penny, is the Evergreen OB6068. It's not really a satisfying name. It's not like hula popper, but it's a weird. But this is Evergreen, which is another kind of bougie Japanese brand. It's more of a small popper, like a popper. And me and Andrew have done really well on these. These walk really good. It's more of a small bait, but it has super sharp hooks. Like I'm almost, trying not to hook myself here. It's one of those baits that just like, it's super sharp. I'm afraid, but great smallmouth bait. I actually caught a musky on this up on the Ottawa River. It was pretty funny because this popper is like 2 inches long and I was just popping it and this musky just shot up and just destroyed it. I'm like, yay. Then I had to like change the hooks on it. The front hook was like completely bent out. Stupid musky. But yeah, poppers are great. I love fishing a popper in the early morning because it's a bait that you can get to work really subtly. Like sometimes when the water's flat calm, you don't want to chuck a bait that is super obnoxious, right? You just want something to slowly pop through the water and then you can let it sit. And Andrew talked about dead sticking last week, and poppers are a great bait to do that, right?
Absolutely. I think like you said, walking the dog, you can do it with that too. And I have success with it as well. But a popper, the integral part of its retrieve is the fact that it does sit motionless. You have to let it pause, at least momentarily, even if you're popping it the whole time. It has to have that moment to sit before you pop it forward again. It's not a constant retrieve, constant movement. And like you said, when you can work it up to, like work it fast towards that piece of structure that you want to hit. It's that same scenario, you cast past the log, you bring it up to it. Just, when you're past the log or in your strike zone, what you expect it to be, you can like pause and just like tap, 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 and just like, just walks like 6 inches forward, like 3-4 times, just let it sit. And that's often when you get the blow up is right then on that pause. Yeah. So they are the king of, if you want to, extend your dead sticking, popping is a great way, one of the best techniques to start doing that because the pause is a big deal with the popper.
And I feel like when it's sitting there, I've seen a lot of underwater footage of bass just staring at topwater lures, like right underneath it. And then as soon as it pops forward, it's like a reaction. They're just like, oh, and they go up and they crush it. So I think a lot of times, especially on pressured water, or even sometimes the fish are just in an off mood, right? I always think fish are either in an active mood, a negative mood, or a neutral mood. Neutral, they could take it or leave it. Active, they're just swimming up and crushing it. But sometimes when they're in a negative mood, they're just staring at it. You have to get them to bite, right? Kind of like with a jerk bait. It's just suspending there. And they're looking at it and then it jerks away from them and then they just go up and crush it because that's their reaction. Their natural predator reaction is to not let something like that escape from them. And I think that's the same with a popper, just sitting there, especially if you dead stick it. And it kind of makes them antsy, I think, just sitting there and they're like, what is that? Why is it here? Especially like in their area. Like, I don't like that being there. I think oftentimes, especially when it's a big bass, like on a log or something, and that's their area, I think, especially when using bigger baits too, I feel like sometimes they hit stuff just to get it out of their area, even if they're not hungry. And I think that's why those big glide baits and stuff work, because bass will be like, get out of here. Like they think it's a fish, like, get out of here. And they just like hit it. It's like, okay. And you catch them. So yeah, poppers are cool. And one that Andrew mentioned, the shower blows. Yeah. Which is another evergreen. It's kind of a popper and a walking bait mixed together. I more view it as like a walking bait myself. So we'll kind of cover that in there. But they have this is the 105 size. They have another bigger size. But one that I got, which I actually treat more like a walking popper, is the SB77.
I love those.
This is it's a smallmouth killer.
Yes.
It has super sharp hooks, has a feathered treble. It's kind of like a long, fat cigar.
It's like a long, narrow spook, but with a pop face on it.
With a pop face, yeah. And this particular one, it's like 2.5 inches long. I have cleaned up on smallmouth on this in Algonquin Park. Like it's an absolute weapon. And it's very butt heavy. So when you cast it, it literally goes like a missile. It's like, you don't have to worry about it tumbling through the air. Absolute weapon. And again, you can pop it, you can twitch it, you can dead stick it, you can spit it back and forth. It's just a great bait. And, it's a little more expensive, but it's one of those baits that you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, that's going to kill. And confidence is everything, right, Andrew?
I agree. And I absolutely agree. Another thing too, when you spend the extra bucks on a JDM style or more higher end popper, you get things like you talked about, like weight transfer technology and stuff like that. So those original hula poppers, they still work, but you toss it, it's light, it's made of balsa wood or plastic, and it just kind of fumbles through the air and just lands and chug it forward. Technology has come a long way in baits. And so when you can go into the more, as you say, bougie or even just more modern designs, oftentimes they'll have like weight transfer. So you can cast, on those easy casts, you can still maybe cast 10, 20 feet further, which can make all the difference, especially if you want to fish it where you're in a sheltered bay, but it's windy. Like let's say it's a kind of a windy day, but there's not a lot of topwater chop itself because you're tucked in behind some weeds, something like that. You can still fish them and cast them through the air on a windy day better because they have that like weight transfer technology and stuff in them. So sometimes it can be worth to get the higher end ones.
Absolutely. And then we're going to talk about gear recommendations, just generally, like not specific rods and reels. When it comes to poppers, most of the time, like we said, poppers are usually on the smaller side of thing. You're looking at, a little pop R, something like this. Most of these poppers are generally 3/8 of an ounce, maybe half ounce. The only ones that I generally use that are slightly bigger than that would be that Storm Arashi. I think that's a little more than half an ounce, but generally speaking, they're not super big, heavy baits. I actually really like throwing poppers on spinning gear because a lot of the poppers I'm using they're smaller, right? And I've done really well on just a 6.6 to 7.3 medium light to medium power spinning rod, fast action. And then I'm going to like to use braid, usually 10-pound braid. And then I'll put on a short leader, which if I'm just fishing topwaters, I'm going to have a short 12-inch leader of like monofilament or something like that, usually 10, 12 pound, just so that the braid doesn't loop around any of the hooks when I'm casting it or working it. You don't even need to use that. Generally, if I'm fishing and I have straight braid and I just tie on a popper, it's not a bait that generally gets fouled up, but spinning gear is nice. You can make a nice long cast, skip them around trees and stuff like that pretty easy. It's another great bait too to fish with, kids or people with less experience, I find, because it's a fun lure to use. You can be like, okay, cast it out, let it sit, and then bloop, pop your rod down. It's cool. I've had, I fish with kids and you're like, okay, they like the Whopper Plopper and the popper because the Whopper Plopper is, I tell them it makes the sound of an old man peeing. It's just like in the water. And they're like, don't tell my kid that. I'm like, sorry. But yeah, it's a fun thing to fish. And then if I am using casting gear, one of my favorite rods that I actually recently got maybe 2 or 3 years ago, it's a 6.9 medium light Daiwa Tatula. It's a jerkbait small topwater rod, and it's very parabolic. It's regular action. It's almost like a crankbait rod. It literally bends. And then I'll have a little bait casting reel full of, 30-pound braid or mono. I still use mono for poppers. Not a big deal. Usually I'll run 10 or 12-pound mono. And then that same rod I'll use for crankbaits. So it's kind of like a crossover rod, but a little rod like that is great if you like using casting gear. And what about BFS? We'll talk to Andrew, our BFS guy.
BFS, I absolutely love it for fishing topwater. So like this. This is, in my mind, what BFS is like perfect for is you can cast these lighter baits that you want to cast on your spinning rod because it's easier, but you're casting it on a bait caster. So your accuracy when you're fishing around structure, stuff like that, I would much rather be tossing a bait caster reel than a spinning reel. Not to say you can't do it. You can use whatever you have available. But now that I have BFS combos, I absolutely love. One of my favorite techniques for BFS is, some people think, oh, is it like Ned rigs or small cranks? Like I like those, but BFS topwaters are my go-to, like small poppers. I even bought one of those like little Mega Bass like Pop Max Juniors, like the small ones. I love
like
that
quarter
thing.
ounce.
Yeah, the Piku, all these like other awesome little hard baits on BFS, and those things, like casting on a rod like that is literally designed, and a reel is designed to throw light baits with small trebles. It is in its element. And again, once you hook up, you're fighting fish in a bait caster. It can't be better than that.
Yeah, it's true.
Big fish, light gear.
You don't need anything fancy to fish a popper. This is just our recommendations for what to use. The next category that we're going to talk about is crawlers. Now, you may not know what the heck I'm talking about, but we're going to cover a few of them. One of the most popular crawling baits of all time, and probably the OG, is this one right here. We have the jitterbug, which is pretty cool. Another one I have here, this is kind of like an oddball category. I have the head and crazy crawler.
I was going to say the crazy crawler.
Yeah, but technically they're in the same category. The crazy crawler is a weird lure because it's basically just like a body with two metal arms that stick out to the side. And as you reel it in, it kind of just like, it looks like a bat struggling to swim.
Of all things, yeah, they were designed to mimic a bat in the water.
Yeah, like, they're very, very weird baits. And, you know, I just feel like these aren't as popular because there are some difficulties in using them. And usually that is these little hinges, they get clogged up with weeds or debris from the surface. And then as soon as one slightly doesn't work, it doesn't work at all. Like it'll just start spinning in one direction. It doesn't work. It has to be like pristine, no weeds on the surface, very good conditions to fish this. But it is one of the most unique and cool looking and sounding topwaters that you can use. It's just like boom, 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 boom. It's super weird. And not a lot of people fish these, and they're not popular at all. And I don't know why. They even have like huge musky versions of these, not the head and crazy color, but like other brands. And they're giant. They actually look like a dying seagull flying, like trying to flop out of the water. It's pretty cool. In that same category, the jitterbug. It's kind of the most classic lure. Again, you probably find this in your grandpa or your dad's tackle box. It's just got, you know, regular body, but it has that cupped metal faceplate on the front. And so many brands have copied this, but this is the OG. Actually, the jitterbug, can you guess what decade that came out in, Andrew?
The jitterbug, that was also Fred Arbogast, but I think that was probably the early 50s.
Nope. This is actually the OG.
Ooh.
Yeah, this is 1937. This came out in 1937, yeah. And actually, the cool thing is about these is because the faceplate is metal, the company actually had to start using them during the World War and World War II. They had to start making the cupped plates out of plastic. So if you ever find some old jitterbugs with a plastic lip, those are from the World War II era. Apparently they work just as good, but you probably wouldn't want to fish it because it's a vintage lure. But when it comes to jitterbugs, I think that is, I know everyone's dad or the grandpa had, you know, the classic lure that they used. And that was my dad's classic lure, was a jitterbug. And he liked the one that was like, you know, the frog color on the top, white on the bottom, right? That was like my dad's OG lure. He had a few of those. I always remember him using those and catching bass on them. It's not a lure that I throw all the time, but there's one time that I like to throw this lure. Can you guess, Andrew?
At night?
Exactly. I love throwing, especially this black jitterbug at night. Yes. It's the coolest lure ever. And when you get that thing at the right speed, and it's just like gargling on the surface, you can just hear it. You can't see it. You can just hear it working. And then all of a sudden, boom, fish blows up on it. It's pretty cool.
You'll hear it get hit too. So if you're fishing, it's like dead quiet. You're fishing like, obviously not like around a city or something like that, but you're like backcountry camping. You cast out at night. You can't see squat, maybe like a bit of the moon glow on the water. And you hear that.
Yeah.
And I've fished as well and had success dead sticking it at night, which you think, okay, it's pitch black. How is anything seeing it not move? But they've been tracking it and they take note of where it is and it's silhouetted from underneath. And all you hear is, and it's the hooks rattling against the bait. And you'll hear it starting getting picked up by like rock bass and stuff like that when you pause it at night. It's really cool.
They're definitely cooler. We actually have these. It comes in a bunch of different sizes. This is actually the musky jitterbug I got here. This is a bit of a bigger one. This is not really musky size. This is a finesse musky bait for sure. This size also catches pretty gigantic largemouth bass too. And they're not that expensive. I think this giant one is only like less than $15. Like they're not expensive lures, but a great lure to have for sure. The cool thing about a jitterbug, like a lot of these topwater lures that we're going to talk about today, is they're really easy to fish. They're pretty much just cast and retrieve. You can cast this thing out. The jitterbug isn't something that I generally would target fish. You can definitely do that, but this is for me as a search bait. I'll cast it out along a shoreline and then just get it at that good speed and just plop it right into the boat. And fish go nuts over it. It's been catching fish since the 40s and it continually catches fish. And people still use it to this day. It's not as popular anymore as it used to be, obviously, because there's so many choices now, right? Mm-hmm. But it is an absolute weapon on the water, especially at nighttime. And if you need one color to get at nighttime, black. Yeah. It just silhouettes better against the moonlight, right? But I also have, this is another OG. Does it matter? No, but I've always been a sucker for redhead. That's a cool jitterbug there. It's the white one with the red head. I can just see it better when I'm fishing it during the day. So that's a cool bait there. And the crazy crawler, like we said, I've caught a few fish on them. Have you, Andrew?
I have actually had good success with the crazy crawler. Like you were saying, they foul up really easy, like one strand of weed floating on the surface. I even had like heavy pollen. When you get that like yellow scum layer, it just doesn't work through that. But one thing I absolutely love it for, just because it has a bit more aggressive like topwater crawling action than the jitterbug is if you're fishing above like a rock flat, especially like early morning or something like that, or the low light above a shoal, a rocky shoal where there are no weeds, you're in, not even close to shore for debris to be floating on top of the surface there. That thing cleans up well. I find it's a great, really easy to toss. No need to do extra action on it, and it's just hassle free at that point. If you have spots like that you want to fish a topwater on that has a good topwater action, pick up a crazy crawler, absolutely, and try it there. I'm sure you'll have success.
It's a cool lure. If you don't have one, it's gonna suck to use, I guarantee. But pick one up. They're not expensive. I think they're like $12. Pick one up just to try it out. It's a really cool lure. And I feel like maybe you're fishing a spot that a lot of guys fish. Maybe they'll hit a crazy crawler because it's something new. They probably haven't seen it in 40 years. I'm just kidding. The old guy down at the pier fishes it, but it's just a very cool lure. Gear recommendations for that. They are slightly bigger baits. I would recommend just the standard bass combo that you're probably already using, a medium power fast action spinning rod. I like braided line because, cast really far, right? 10 pound, 15 pound braided line, 20 pound. Doesn't really matter. If you're using a bait caster, again, a medium power fast action or even a regular, something like mod fast is good because it is treble hooks. Nothing crazy. You just need to be able to cast it fairly accurately and decently far, and then just reel it in. That's all you need. Nothing crazy. So the next category of topwater lures we're going to talk about is probably one of the most popular ones, I'd say in the last 10 years, Andrew. I remember being very skeptical about them when they kind of became popular, but I'm a huge fan now. And what would that be, Andrew?
Ploppers.
Ploppers, yes. Not only do they make a cool noise, but they slam fish. When you think of plopper, I think that most people are going to think of this one lure here. The river to sea Whopper plopper. It's a plopper that catches whoppers. Who would have thought? This is the bigger one. I forget the size. I think this is the 130. And yep, it says 130 on the bottom. Does it? Oh, no, it's kind of worn off because I've caught so many fish on it, Jesse bragged. It does. It says 130. But this is the 130 size. It's about 5 inches long, 4.5 inches long, something like that. And that is a really, really popular topwater lure. It's basically a floating buzzbait. Mm-hmm. It's pretty cool. Now, you may be on team Whopper Plopper, or you may be on team Berkley Choppo.
Heresy.
Usually these people, Whopper Plopper people, they despise Choppo people. But I'll tell you the secret. Choppos catch a lot of fish. I think they make a slightly different noise because the actual prop on the back is actually hard plastic. And on the Whopper Plopper, it's actually soft plastic. It actually bends a bit. I don't know. All I know is both of them absolutely slam fish. I am a huge Choppo fan because at the time, these were a lot cheaper than the Whopper Plopper. Is it a knockoff of the Whopper Plopper? Absolutely. Do I care? No, not even a little bit, because these absolutely catch fish. I have a whole bunch of different sizes too. This is the bigger one that I use generally for like, largemouth fishing, pike, finesse musky fishing. But then they have a lot of other sizes. This is the smaller one. I don't know what size this is. The 90 size, 90 millimeter. That is a really good smallmouth bass bait. Really good. Same with the Whopper Plopper. Comes in sizes from tiny, little 1.5 inch long or something like that, all the way up to a big musky size one. And here's another one. Check this out. They go pretty big. This is a Twisted Sister from, I think it's a Chaos. Big, musky size plopper. Very big. I don't even chuck this thing because it looks like a seagull trying to, fly out of the water when you reel it in. But maybe I should use it, catch some giant fish on it. Andrew, why would you say that plopper baits kind of became so popular?
Guys started winning tournaments on them.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's one of those baits where, just like the previous topwaters you talked about, like they came out, and again, it's not like it's 100% brand new invention, but the Whopper Plopper came out and it started crushing in tournaments. It started to get known within the professional community, but then everyone else realized, hey, I can just cast and retrieve this and it's easy and it works. So it became popular with everyone, right? It's one of those baits where it's easy to use. You don't need any special technique to be able to use it effectively.
Absolutely. And I know a lot of people were like, you know what? The Whopper Plopper is the original. It's the OG. Not even close. If you think that, you're uneducated. I'm going to educate you right now, people. Listen up. Whopper Plopper came out in 2008. Mm-hmm. Do you honestly think that it was the first tail rotating surface lure? Not even close. Let's go back 80 years to the original Mud Puppy, which if you look up, it doesn't look exactly like Whopper Plopper, but it was a floating tail rotating bait 80 years ago. Okay. So everyone's like, oh, everyone's copying the Whopper Plopper, blah, blah, blah. No, everyone's copying lures that have been around for literally almost 100 years. Like, come on. It doesn't matter which one you use. almost every brand has one, right? There's, the main two, I'd say, is the Whopper Plopper again and the Berkley Choppo, both absolutely fantastic. Get the one that you like. Get the one that works for you. Get a few different colors. The color that I generally like, you can probably tell, is I like the black ones. You can't go wrong with a black and a white and a natural, and mostly black and white. That's all you need. But like Andrew said, I think they're really popular because all you have to do is cast and retrieve them. There's nothing, it's not like, you have to walk them, or like a buzz bait, you got to cast them out and reel them in fast before they sink. You can just cast it out and reel it in. And in fact, when I take people out fishing that have little experience or children and we're bass fishing and it's topwater time, guaranteed I'm going to use a Whopper Plopper or a Berkley Choppo. Not only do they sound funny, they sound hilarious when you reel them in. I still giggle.
You can't say Plopper around Jesse without him doing a little giggle.
It's true, especially when you know how many fish I've caught on these. But they're just so crazy. I think they attract fish from a long way away, and they cause explosive hits. I feel like half the time fish eat stuff because they're hungry. But I also feel like sometimes when it comes to like Whopper Ploppers and chatterbaits, I feel like sometimes the bass hit it because they're annoyed and they want to kill it. And that's the case with the Whopper Plopper. Oh my goodness. You'll chuck that thing out and the explosions you'll get from bass and pike and musky just out of nowhere. It's crazy. Especially on this, like this size of Whopper Plopper, which isn't even that big. I've had giant musky come out of nowhere and just blow up on it and completely miss it. Like I've hooked a few of them, and yeah, I'm bass fishing and this like 40-inch musky comes up and blows up on this thing, and it's like, 4 inches long. They just have fish drawing power, and they cast like a bullet. Crazy lures to use. I absolutely love them. I feel like it is one of the best beginner topwater lures, but it works all the way up to if you're a professional. Like look at the guys out on the tour still fishing these because they still work. It's one of those lures. It's like the stick bait. Everyone's like, oh, everyone uses that. There's a reason, because they work. And I think they always will work. I think just that noise, it just drives fish insane. I honestly think. So we kind of covered some of the gear that we use for some of the smaller stuff. The gear is very similar. When I'm chucking bigger stuff like this Whopper Plopper is, I think it's close to an ounce. It's a slightly bigger bait. I do like using heavier gear, of course. The hooks are slightly bigger. They're a little more thicker gauge. The lure itself is bigger. I'm generally going to be fishing this on a medium heavy rod. Baitcaster, 30-pound braid. You can even tie it straight to 30-pound braid. I don't really see the need for a leader in this case unless the fish are shy. Generally, I don't think they're noticing the line at all when they're zoning in on one of these things, right? So 30-pound braid, 40, 50, doesn't matter, but 30-pound is good because it lets you cast really far. And when it comes to rods, I like something that's moderate fast or like Daiwa regular action. So it has a little more bend. So when you do cast it out and the fish blows up on it, it's a little more limber. So when you set the hook, you don't pull it out of their mouth. And then plus when you hook up with them, the rod has a little bit more parabolic action. So when the fish is thrashing around like bass like to do, it keeps them pinned, especially with these treble hooks. So that is a cool bait. If you've never used a plopper and you bass fish, I don't know what to tell you. Andrew, what do you tell these people?
Start. Come on, people.
Yes. That is great advice. I thought at this time we'd pause for a second and read 2 reviews that we recently got. Now, at the beginning of the podcast, I was saying that reviews help us, and they do. The reason for that is when people write reviews for the show, doesn't matter where you write it, Apple, any like podcast streaming service, if you write a review, it all goes into the rankings. And rankings have to do with a lot about how long people listen to the episode, reviews that we get during a certain time period, and it just helps us rank higher in the charts, which is great because I screenshot these charts all the time. And then when we're dealing with sponsors, we can oftentimes be like, hey, like this is how popular the podcast is with our listeners, and show them that we're always, ranking high in the Canadian wilderness charts, which helps us get giveaways. So it helps you guys. You might win a giveaway. So I thought I'd read 2 of the reviews that we recently got. These are really good reviews. Please write us a review and we'll read it, especially if it's funny. So here's one from Cooper B. He gave us 5 stars.
Is that Cooper Bellant?
No. Maybe. He says, downright amazing, helpful, funny, totally relatable, and awesomely average. I've had people describe me that way.
Without the awesome.
He says, I've been tuning in for over a year now, and I can say with confidence that this is the best, not one of, but the best fishing podcast ever. Believe me, I've heard them all. I can't even begin to describe how much I've learned from you guys, not to mention all the times I found myself nodding along. Yeah, I feel that. Relatable. That's honestly the best part, just how average it is. So that's a pretty average review. Do better next time. Just kidding. You know what? We strive to be relatable. And that's why we named ourselves the Average Ontario Anglers. We're not out there thinking we're all that in a bag of chips, right, Andrew?
If I was, I'd be hickory sticks, but
we suck just as much as you guys do.
Especially my jokes. Oh.
Thanks for that review. Here's our next review. This is from an account called Dreams of 40s. I dreams of 40s too. Hopefully he's talking about 40-inch muskies.
40-inch pike.
And not 40 aged women. I don't know. Nothing wrong with that, I guess. My wife's turning 40 this year, so yeah.
Watch your mouth.
Okay. Yeah. She's like, what? What did you say? So Dreams of 40s, he says, incredible fishing podcast, recently discovered the Average Ontario Anglers in May. It's based in Ontario, Canada. My son and I downloaded a bunch of episodes and listened to them around the campfire in the backwoods, fishing, ice out pike, and we are both hooked. Jesse and Andrew are so informative. Their knowledge was helpful, helped us immensely, and hopefully we can become at least close to average anglers. It's given us the confidence that by applying the knowledge gained from them, this will be possible. Podcast format is awesome. It's clean, no profanity, so it makes it very easy on the ears. Can't say enough good things about this podcast. Happy I discovered it. Thanks, guys. Tight lines. We appreciate that review. We do like to keep this podcast squeaky clean because sometimes my grandpa listens to it and he's 96. But he forgets every episode anyway as soon as he hears it, so that's okay. Either way. So we'd like to thank you for those reviews. And before we get back into our segment of bait, we're going to talk a little bit about our sponsor today, and that's Lunker Hunt. Lunker Hunt makes really cool baits. In fact, if you have some spare time, I'm going to link below their website. I just want you to do us a favor. Yeah, I know we always tell you guys to look at lures and you end up buying stuff. Don't have to buy stuff. But if you do, that's fine. Doesn't affect me at all. But they've got some cool baits, right, Andrew, on their website?
And if you've only seen it in stores, do yourself a favor, check out their website. Because there is stuff like, I never looked on the website until recently, and I was like, there's a bunch of things I want now. There's a bunch of things I need now.
Yeah. It was funny because I was fishing out on Lake Erie a few weeks ago, and we stopped at a Canadian Tire, which, I like to do because, sometimes you go into a Canadian Tire, like, we live in Durham region, so the Canadian Tires are kind of meh. You go there and you're like, nothing crazy. But you go to one in like Belleville, or one in Bancroft in a fishing city, and the selection is massive. Like it almost rivals some tackle stores. Like you go in and there's like 7 rows of fishing stuff, and the Canadian Tire in my house, it has like 1 row and it's terrible. But some of these Canadian Tires are amazing. So anyway, we're in Woodstock, which is in the middle of nowhere, literally. If you live there, no offense. And we stopped in and I was like, I'm going to go to... We were picking up an air mattress for my brother-in-law. I forgot his air mattress when we were camping. Sucker. But I was like, okay, I'm going to look at the fishing section because usually, I'll sneak in 1 or 2 purchases and no one will be the wiser, right? So I went in there and dude, they had some stuff I've never seen before. Lunker Hunt stuff. They had all kinds of stuff that I've seen on the website, but I've never seen in person. So you really have to check the Canadian Tires because sometimes you're pleasantly surprised. They had some really cool, like big predator stuff for pike and musky. And I was like, dude, I've never seen this before. So make sure you check it out on the website or check out your Canadian Tire. But they've got a lot of cool stuff. I have to say, one thing that I bought when I was there was the Lunker Hunt revealer tubes. I'm a big tube guy. I love tubes. And I don't fish them like smallmouth because I fish shallow. So I'm flipping tubes. And the revealer tubes are really cool. I don't know how I'm not a bait maker, but I think they dip them with 2 different colors. So when they dip them first, it's 1 color, and then they dip another color over top of it. So the one I got was like crawdad color. So the outside is like brownish green, but the inside is like orange. So every time you like twitch it and the tentacles kind of flare, it's like a flash of like orange and green together. It's super cool. And I don't know if I've seen that in any other branded tube, but the Lunker Hunt revealer tubes are pretty cool. But one bait that we're really excited about, and we're going to tell you a little story time right now, is the Forensi mouse. And that's this one right here. This is the Lunker Hunt Forensi mouse. What color do you have there, Andrew?
I have the chipmunk here. I have a few, but this is the chipmunk one, which is cute.
How would you describe this topwater mouse, Andrew?
So picture a rubber mouse. Now make it hollow.
Yes.
Now cover it in like flocking so it's fuzzy. Then stick a small Senko up its butt as the tail.
PG.
Put on some gaff of a hook that are like super like well coated.
They're giant.
What are they, 6/0?
They've got to be
Like
6-aught at
nice,
least.
big, round hooks, very weedless, but they're one of those coated hooks. You can lean into the fish and this thing just like slides in. Like you don't want to play with these hooks with your fingertips. Like, and
by coated hooks, just to describe that, I've noticed the last few years, we've got a lot of these hook brands that have the Teflon coated hooks. I think it's called Teflon. And they're basically hooks that are coated. It says slick nano coated hooks. It's like nanotechnology. No, I was kidding. But they're coated with some kind of very slick, smooth material. So the hook, when you set the hook, it has a lot less friction sliding into the fish's mouth. So I've been using hooks like that for flipping and pitching for the last like 2 or 3 years. I do notice that they're sharper for sure. And I don't know if it's just in my head, but I feel like they do hook fish better. The first thing I noticed when I saw this mouse, I think it came out last year at ICAST, so it's been out about a year, was just how big the hooks are.
Yeah.
Like the gap on these hooks, like when you squeeze this body, it is very soft.
Yes.
But the hooks themselves are absolute giant. Yeah. Like they're 6-aught at least, maybe 5 or 6-aught. They're big. But the gap is absolutely giant. And I was like, dude, that's going to easily hook fish. It's a very soft body. A lot of weedless frogs, sometimes the body is very hard. This is very thin and it compresses very easily. And as soon as you compress that, you got these 2 giant 6-aught slick coated hooks that just slide in. Like the hookup ratio on this mouse,
really good.
So far, fantastic. Some frogs you use and you're like, I had to bend the hooks up. I had to do this. I had to do that. Right out of the box, this thing is fantastic. No need for that at all. It sits like very natural in the water, like with its butt down. It's got this little tail that kind of twitches in the water when it's just sitting there, which could possibly tease more bites, right? But it's got a built-in weight that makes it sit really good. It is 1/2 ounce. But the cool thing about the fur, not only does the fur look cool and natural like a mouse, but what is another feature that they say that the fur helps with?
So there's 2 other features that it can help with, what they say. So first of all, with it being rough, I know some guys, they swear by having like a patch of like Velcro on the top of their frog. There's some brands that will have that. Some guys glue it on. And they say it'll help kind of grip into the bass's teeth and help prevent it from being like thrown out. So that's one reason why they have the flocking on there. The other reason is it'll actually retain water. So as you cast it, when you reel this thing back in after casting it once or twice, and the actual coating of this frog is like your hair will hold water after a shower longer than the rest of your skin will. All these little hairs on here are actually retaining water. So it actually will gain like 1/8, 1/4 ounce. I'm not sure exactly how much, but honestly, a noticeable amount of weight for your next cast.
It's noticeable. Yeah, it's noticeable.
And that is a bigger benefit to me than it, the perhaps the flocking helping it stay in a bass's mouth. I mean, I'm completely satisfied with the hookup ratio and these hooks staying in. Like they have great penetrating power and they stay hooked from what I've experienced so far with it. Maybe that is a flocking, maybe not. But the hooks are doing it for me. The added weight for casting is actually like really nice.
It does cast really far. That is one of the first things I noticed when I picked it up. It's sizable. It's got some weight to it. I got the black and the white one here. It does cast really far, which is great. Now, the story time is we went out fishing in the Kawartha Lakes, and we went out one day after work, which is something we're trying to do. And I encourage everyone to do this because life is short and weekends are terrible for fishing in the Kawarthas because there's so many people fishing. So what me and Andrew did is, we both got off early one day from work and we got up to the lake at about 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, something. It was not too bad. 5:30 maybe. We launched the boat. We went up and we're fishing a section of water that is all lily pads
thick
and
cover,
bulrushes and thick cover. And realistically, the only bait that we generally throw in there is we're either flipping, and by flipping, I'm punching. Like it's just heavy 1 ounce tungsten through thick mats, or topwater frog or mouse. So Andrew's like, why don't we try the frenzy mouse? Because we both have some, right? So I tied on one, he tied on one, and we went to town. It wasn't the best day for weather. It was pretty windy. It was a bit of a cold front. So I was kind of really like skeptical if we were going to get them on topwater. But we actually turned out to catch about 14 fish that night? Yeah, we caught 14. We missed a bunch. The fish were being kind of weird. It's not like we missed them because they grabbed the bait, but they were just kind of like bumping them.
They'd boil right beside it and you'd see your bait just sitting on the top sill. I'm like, come on.
Yeah. I think the only time I took my frenzy mouse off is after the first musky bit me off. I was like, I can't lose this mouse. So I took it off and I put on another bait that I didn't really care about. But we were both fishing the frenzy mouse. We like recommending baits that we actually like. And this is one that I actually wholeheartedly recommend. And I'll tell you why. Not only does it cast far, like I said, the hookup ratio is fantastic because of those giant hooks on it, but it walks so good. I have a lot of people and they'll be like, I'm not good at walking a frog. It's difficult sometimes. It requires a little bit of practice to get that thing to twitch on the surface. This frenzy mouse, super easy. Like I could teach a child to do that. Little twitches of the rod. This thing, it doesn't even walk. It just pivots in place. Like it literally does this in the water. It's just like back and forth, back and forth. I was like, Andrew, look, it does like, it looks like a mouse is just like breakdancing on the surface. It's just literally, it doesn't even look like a mouse. It's just like swirling in one spot in a circle. I was twitching it and it was only moving forward like an inch at a time. Does that make a difference? I don't know, but I like to do that in little pockets and stuff. And I find the bass absolutely hate it or they love it. Either way, they smash the lure. So that was the main thing for me, that how well it walked. And because of the hooks being so sharp and the gap was so big, I was actually fishing a medium heavy bait casting rod like Dave Mercer suggested, because I normally would use a heavy rod, right? And then fish would blow up and I'd slackline them and give them the beans, right? With this mouse, all I did was fish would blow up on it. I'd reel in the slack and just lean back on them really hard. I wouldn't actually set the hook really hard. I would just lean back really hard. And the hookup ratio was fantastic. That's my initial thoughts on it from using it for 2 days.
I actually bought one last year in the winter and I didn't get to use it. So like I had intention of using this before Lunkrant even approached us. And I was like, oh, this thing. I cast it in early spring, like a preseason bass. And I was like, Jesse, this thing walks like a boss. This is now going to be my new favorite topwater. Like I'm so excited to use this in the summer. And so this is the one. I've caught multiple bass on this thing here. Still holding together well. Even had musky blow up on it. I had to use a little mend. I need to do a bit more mend it on the tail. But again, it's soft plastic. That's totally fine. The amount of bass this has already caught me, it's done its job. The hooks are still deadly sharp, but going along with Jesse's like walking thing, the other reason why I like it is I was using an extra heavy like frog/flipping rod, and I was bombing this thing as far as I could go. So this thing is wet. I was casting it 100 feet, 120 feet, like
just dangerously far.
And I mean, not like in open water. Like I'm like back across a pad bed and then over a channel and into the next pad bed. Like that's where I'm fishing it. Yeah. So I'm like, I got an extra heavy rod. I can do this. And what I was really impressed with is there are some frogs where they work really well over scum, like really well through, standing reeds, really well through. So others will work better on top of like a bunch of like floating weeds. Others are better for just open water. This one does a really good job of being an all-rounder. Like some of the ones that are more for open water, I find their hook points might be slightly exposed and they'll start picking up weeds in the side. These, and I'm not sure how much because the hook points aren't directly like buried into the plastic, but there's little ears in the front of the mouse. And I think that helps deflect a lot of the weeds in the tip of these hooks.
I think so, yeah.
It wasn't getting snagged on anything. Like I'm bombing this through reeds, against bulrushes, through like the first couple bulrushes, lily pads that are all piled on top of each other, cheese mats, and I was bringing it across everything. And it wasn't getting hung up. And for me, that was huge.
I don't think I actually snagged anything either, realistically. Maybe once or twice all night. But yeah, the ears, they stick up right in front of where the hooks go. I think that helps deflect majority of stuff that's going to go over the body anyway. Yeah.
And
that's a good point.
So for me, I was super impressed with the fact I could tie this on and I can work it like a small walking bait right beside like a certain point of structure, or I can use this as a frog to cover a lot of area. I can fish it on top of weeds, a thick cover, lighter cover, doesn't matter. This is honestly one of the best, if not the best, all-rounder frog or hollow body topwater that I've used. Like this thing,
that's saying a lot because we've used a lot.
It's saying a lot, and that's why, again, like Jesse said, we don't always accept or talk and endorse products like this unless it's something that we like. So the fact we're talking about it is because we like it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just it's a cooler. It's just like it's a mouse, right? It's kind of like it's just a cool bait to use. And dude, it catches. Like we had more than a few musky blow up on it. Not giant musky, but like 25 to 30 inch musky just blow up on this. And I did not want to lose it. And I didn't have any wire leaders, so I took it off quick. But I probably caught about 5 or 6 bass on this. I know Andrew kept using his, so he caught more. And I went out earlier and I caught 2 or 3 on it. So it has caught a bunch of fish so far. Longevity-wise, we've only been using them for a few weeks. But so far, really impressed with this lure. It's very cool. And just look at the tail. Like it's just like whippy. I like it. Comes in a bunch of different colors. Again, it's 1/2 ounce. It comes in a bunch of different colors. My go-to, again, is black and white. So I have a white one here and I have a black one. I'll just kind of switch between what I personally think is going to work at that time. Usually, like if it's closer to nighttime or early in the morning, I'm going to fish black. And during the day, I'll use white. And it just might be because I can visibly see white better when I'm working it because I'm half blind. Doesn't really matter. I don't know. Andrew is a chipmunk colored one. Like, does the bass think a chipmunk is swimming through the water? Maybe. Maybe not. Who knows?
A gray one. I got gray, brown, kind of like the natural mice color that you'd experience or expect to see out there. But black and white, they're going to work just as well.
So while we're on the topic of that, of course, definitely check out the link in the bio. If you've never seen the Lunker Hunt Frenzy mouse, it's a pretty cool bait. I'd recommend getting one. Again, we're not getting any like affiliate links if you buy one. It doesn't matter to me if you buy one or not, but I'd recommend you buy one if you fish for bass. I can see it working really good for smallmouth bass too. I can see fishing this around like a rocky shoreline with a bunch of branches, somewhere where you'd see like a field mouse running around the shoreline, trying to swim across. Big smallmouth comes up and absolutely decimates it. Poor little fella. All he wanted was some cheese.
And if people think that, do bass actually eat mice? If you are someone who likes to fish lures that are natural and you think, I've never seen a mouse running across a weed bed. I have. And I actually caught a smallmouth bass last 2 years ago. And I lipped it, pulled it up, and I was unhooking it. And it was only like a pound and a half. And sticking out of the gullet was a mouse head. Like, it was dead at this point, but I was like, "Ooh!" Like there's a face looking at me from inside the face. But it was a mouse head, and it was about the same size as one of these little guys. And yeah, bass will 100% eat them. And there are a lot of mice out there. Rodents are promiscuous, and they reproduce quickly, which means there's a lot out there for fish to eat.
Absolutely. So on the topic of Lunker Hunt, again, we're going to put the link in the bio below or the show notes so you can check them out. And if you do buy one, by all means, let us know what you think about it. Because like, again, we're just recommending lures, but we love when people tell us their experiences or recommend lures to us as well. Because, we're avid anglers ourselves. Obviously, we like to try baits. We try way more baits than we should. But we like to tell you guys about the ones particularly that we enjoy. And we've been doing that for 3 years now, and you guys seem to enjoy it. So take the sponsorship with a grain of salt. We actually would have talked about it if Lunker Hunt didn't approach us. But while we're on the topic of hollow-bodied baits like frogs, one other frog thing that we have to talk about is something that apparently we were fishing with someone on the weekend, and they said that we ruined this for everyone. We apologize. And by ruin, I mean we let the cat out of the bag with the Z-Man Goat Toad.
The best topwater. You could probably, the cheapest, most versatile, maybe not most versatile, the cheapest, easiest to rig, longest lasting topwater frog.
Most durable. You can probably tell by what I'm doing right here with this frog, but these last a long time. Yeah. So I guess when it's a hollow body frog, it's a frog, but as soon as it's solid body, they call it a toad. So this is the Z-Man Goat Toad. The one that originally I think started it off was the Zoom Horny Toad. And I think that's one that a lot of people, kind of base their version on. Like, here's a True North Baits teaser toad. I'm going to open this pack. This is some frog fishing ASMR here. But that's a teaser toad. It's just a solid body plastic frog. Doesn't necessarily have to float, but it's got 2 kicker tails on the end. You're going to rig that on a hook or even throw it on a buzz bait. You're going to chuck it out, and then you're going to reel it in at really like a soft plastic buzz bait on the surface. Bass absolutely crush these. Now, the Z-Man one floats, which is a big plus. Some people like theirs to sink too, because then you can drop it in pockets and stuff like that. The Z-Man one, not only is it durable, but it does float, so that's good. That's a super good beginner bait. I've taken a few people fishing that don't really know how to fish. Like, for instance, I took my brother-in-law fishing a few weeks ago, and he's not experienced fisherman at all. We were fishing on Lake Erie in shallow cover, and I gave him a spinning rod. I have a 7-foot medium heavy spinning rod, 15-pound braid, and then I put on this exact one. And I was like, just cast it out, and it doesn't matter. It's completely weedless. I was like, you can cast it anywhere. You can cast it right on shore if you want, and then pull it into the water and just reel it in until you hear the little legs, kicking on the back. It's like a little sputtering, right? And he was chucking that, and within 15 minutes, he caught a 2-pound bass. It just exploded on it. And since you're using a single EWG hook that's pretty thin wire, it's not super, super thick. You don't need a super crazy Bassmaster hook set. You can pretty much just reel into the fish and it's hooked. So that's another really great one. So the Z-Man is our overall favorite. It's just a great bait. Get 3 to a pack, and they're $7 a pack or something like that. So I mean, like, dude, like they last, like I've had this one rigged up on a rod for like 5 trips.
I use one a year.
It's fine. I've caught pike on them. Yeah. You use like 2, maybe 2 a year. And it's usually just because I forget and put them in a regular box, and they get all melted when they touch other plastic. But another one that you should definitely check out is from our buddy Wes at Wham Baits. You can see his new packaging on his baits. It looks pretty slick. I'm going to tell you that. It says, "Welcome to Wham Nation." This is actually the Whamphibian, which as soon as I saw him come out with this mold, these pretty unique molds, I was like, that's going to kill. And I'll tell you why. This is the bone color one right here. Now, it's not exactly the same as like a horny toad. It's slightly different because instead of having little sliced like slit feet on the back, it actually has like long twisters, which is pretty cool. It's a very subtle bait compared to a more, paddle tail foot type of bait like the Z-Man version. This one is very cool. It's not a topwater bait completely because I've done really well doing lots of things with it. Like I put it on a swim jig. Amazing. It's got a flat bottom, so it's really good on a swim jig if you're trying to keep it shallow. You can put this on a buzz bait, which is actually probably my favorite way to fish it.
I love those on buzz baits. Probably my favorite buzz bait.
Yeah. You could also flip it, pitch it, punch it, do anything like that. But it is a cool topwater as well. Hook it on I'd say a 3 to 4 aught EWG, and you're just going to chuck that out and just skitter it across the surface. And it has this like little flick of the tails. It's not super obnoxious. It's subtle. But on some of those days, like the day Andrew was telling you about at the beginning of the podcast, when the fish are just finicky, something like this is an absolute weapon. When you have topwater lures, don't buy a lot of the same thing. Make sure you have something loud and obnoxious, but also something subtle and similar lures. Instead of having all the same thing in different colors, maybe pick up something that's a little more subtle. And on those hard days when your buddies are struggling, you'll be there like Andrew laughing his head off, out fishing me 6-1. But the Whamphibian is very cool. Again, Wes is another local bait maker. Highly recommend that you check out his stuff. It's all made here in Ontario. Very cool. All right. So we're going to go finally onto our next topic of lures. When we talk about topwater frogs and mice, we kind of go overboard. I'm not going to lie. It's okay. I'm sure you guys are okay with it. The next one is actually, it's a cool one. I thought we could just briefly go over this, but it's prop baits. And I don't mean plopper style baits, but prop baits. Andrew, what are some of your choices for a prop bait? I know you're going to go old school.
I like two of my favorite prop baits. The Skitter prop from Rapala.
Yep.
And the Smithwick's Devil's Horse. Those two are my two favorites. Smithwick's is very slender, long prop on both ends, and the Skitter prop, I think that has just a prop in the back, I think.
Yeah.
Just another one that I really like actually, which is hard to find because they don't make it anymore. The Wounded Spook. It's essentially the spook pattern, like the classic bone rib cage down the top, but it's on its side. Like the paint job's on its side, which again is just not really for any purpose other than for us humans. But it has something about old steel on steel. I don't mean it's old steel, like it's old steel on old steel. And so it has like a really nice squeak to it. I'm not sure if that's why I find they work really well, but they can be hard to find, but I actually love those. And it's great size, a bit thicker body, but not super long. And that's probably my top three then.
Andrew will always give you one of his top baits that you can't buy anymore, just so you're jealous. More modernly, I'll tell you some baits that you can probably pick up at most of your tackle shops. Not only, probably the most popular prop bait of all time is the Head and Tiny Torpedo. Little bait, maybe 2 inches long, has a little propeller on the back. Very cool. A bait that I've absolutely slammed fish on. I don't know if it's just this lure, but I've done very well. Oh, I just dropped it. I did not drop it on my pants. That is
not
okay.
This time.
That was a close one, guys. This is the X-Wrap prop. It literally looks like a jerk bait. It's like long, thin, 4.5 inches long, except it floats and it has two props, one on the front, one on the back. They're actually counter-rotating. So the one on the front spins one way, the one on the back spins the other way. So it doesn't just veer off to the left or the right in the water. It kind of goes straight. I was fishing these wrong way too long. I was casting them out and just reeling them in. And that does catch fish. But the way that I watched some videos of guys in Florida actually fish these a lot. The Devil's Horse, like Andrew said, they're classic down there. You cast them out like any topwater, right beside a log or something, and you let it sit until all the rings disappear. Classic, right? The lure's just sitting there, and it sits very flat on the surface. It doesn't sit like this. It sits flat, and then you just pull the rod forward maybe 6 inches, and those little propellers, they just like you just hear them like just spin, just whirling slowly, and it just spits a little bit of water.
It's not a big chopper bait. Like it's not the saltwater where it goes like ripping it through. Like this is just, it's a pull pause basically.
Absolutely. And it just makes that little disturbance on the surface, and then you just let it sit. 9 times out of 10, instantly, as soon as you start whirling it again, you start pulling it again, a bass just comes up and blows up on it. I don't know what noise it's making or what they think that noise is, but that little subtle propeller noise on both the front and the back, it just drives them nuts. And I've caught, in Algonquin specifically, I caught 2 giants over the last few years on this particular bait, right by log jams in deep water. I have this big tree in the water, and I chuck this in, and it just let it sit, and then boom, this fish comes up and destroys it. And it always catches me off guard because I'm not expecting it. And luckily it has 3 small Choppo hooks on it. So usually when they grab it, they're hooked. I prefer not to use as many hooks as 3 all the time, especially with Choppo hooks. But when it comes to topwaters and they're just slamming at it, I prefer to have more hooks, unfortunately, just because you do hook quite a few more fish. Now, another cool one, and I just tried this one out. This was another Canadian Tire buy on the way up to a trip. I had really good success on that particular bait. So I picked up this one. This is the Berkley Spin Bomb. And it's a little short, fat, stubby bait and has 2 plastic propellers on it on the front and the back. And the same thing, very subtle bait. I got this one for smallmouth. It's a little smaller. It's literally only like not even 2 inches long. Spin Bomb, same thing. You check it out, let it sit, and just slow pulls and long pauses. And that's what I find catches the most fish. It's a more subtle bait. It's not a bait that I'm going to cover water with. But if it's a spot that you're like, those spots you go up to and you're like, oh, there's a big one in there. I can just feel it. That's when I'll pull out one of these baits. And I don't know what it is about them. They just absolutely catch fish. And thankfully, so far, Andrew has not bought one. So I've been just destroying him whenever I tie it on.
What I think it is, you ever seen like in the evening and all of a sudden you get all those minnows on the surface and they start like almost walking on the surface, just like little ripples. And they skitter across the surface for like 3 feet and they come down. I think that's what it's imitating, is these little minnows going after all these like little like flies and on the surface and stuff like that. That's just my theory. But if you're seeing that behavior from the bait fish, try a topwater that matches that as best you can and see how that works for you.
Yeah. Highly recommend that. Any lure like that if you haven't tried it. Because for a long time, again, my dad was a jitterbug guy. So when I grew up, it was jitterbugs. And then I learned how to walk the dog. And I didn't really use any propeller style baits for years. And then when I finally did, I was like, why have I not been using these? These are amazing. I'm so dumb. But sometimes you just, you get out of trying a certain type of lure that everyone else tells you to use and you finally use it and you're like, yeah, I'm dumb. All right. So I thought we could go, there's a bunch of different, there's wake baits, there's buzz baits, there's all different kinds of baits. We can't cover them all today. We're going to cover buzz baits quick. Now, we kind of already talked about buzz baits, but buzz baits are amazing lures. They're kind of like, I like to view them as like a weedless Whopper Plopper because it makes a lot of disturbance on the water, much like a Whopper Plopper, but you can reel them through a lot of stuff. Like a Whopper Plopper is a great lure, but if you try to reel them through any kind of surface vegetation, they get fouled up. It's as easy as that. Or even worse, the weeds get wrapped around the propeller in between where the little pin is, and you're trying to pick it out because it won't spin. You're just like, I've made some terrible life decisions at this point. So what should you throw instead of a Whopper Plopper? Get out a big old buzz bait and check that buzz bait. Because the hook is a single hook pointed up, it has this big wire here. It deflects off stuff and it slides over most things. They're not completely weedless, but they're pretty weedless. This one here is the Evergreen. I think it's called the Loud Buzz. It is very loud and it actually has a very good squeak to it. They actually have a crushed grommet on here. So it actually does squeak a lot. I know a lot of guys would get a new buzz bait, stick it out their window on the way to the lake just to wear in the grommet so that it actually squeaked. This one squeaked right out of the package, so you don't have to do that annoying thing. But me and Andrew both have these. We've tried a lot of buzz baits. One of the first buzz baits that I ever bought was the Booyah buzz bait. The one you buy at like Canadian Tire or whatever, and it's like $6, $7. Bare bones. It works. It catches fish. Once you use a high-end buzz bait, I hate to say it, it's really hard to go back. It's not a lure I buy a lot of. So when I do buy one, I buy a nice one.
It's rare to get bit off too, because there's such a long body from the hook is. Even if there are musky or pike around, oftentimes we'll actually hook it and land it, or they'll just miss it completely like they often do. But it's very rare to get bit off on a buzz bait. Yeah,
we've actually caught, remember that one lake we went to, we were using buzz baits and we caught multiple musky on these. We weren't even targeting them at all. We were fishing for bass, but we were catching musky on these. And yeah, they're pretty weedless. They're musky proof and they catch fish. They're really annoying and loud. It's not the best lure, I'd say, when the water's like slick calm. But when you got some chop on the water and you think the fish are still going to be hitting topwater, a lot of people think that the water has to be flat calm to catch fish on topwater. It doesn't. If you've got a little, not like big, like white cups, obviously, but if there's some wind blowing, fish a buzzbait. It's so loud and obnoxious. All that extra noise from the water crashing in the wind, the buzzbait is making a lot of noise, a lot of squeak. It's got a lot of disturbance in the water. It can actually attract those fish up even in, a decent amount of wind. And I've done really good just casting it right up, right around reeds, right around lily pads, and fish absolutely. It's one of those lures, like I said, I think the fish try to kill it because it's so annoying. It's just making so much noise. They hate it. They come up and they slam it. So if you have to have two annoying baits, you got the Whopper Plopper and the buzz bait. and then just pick which one accordingly that you want to use, right? This one's really good around weeds and logs and anything on the surface, except for like, slop and stuff like that. And this one's really good in open water. So make your choice. But buzzbaits, you need one. You need at least one, right, Andrew?
I find like large leafy topwater, like those big pads, they're not ideal around.
No.
Because they'll just kind of roll and the hook will get caught on the edge of the pad. But those small, like little dollar pads and stuff, great around those, but especially around like rice, like pencil reeds and stuff like that. That is amazing. Kind of where you'd want to throw, like you can throw a spinner bait through a lot of that stuff, throw a buzzbait in the top. That is probably your most ideal topwater to fish in those areas.
And surprisingly, they work really good for pike too, although they miss them half the time, which is annoying. But put a trailer hook on that, you'll catch a few more. Usually I'm casting like distance kind of with a buzzbait. I have a 7'5" medium heavy, and that's when I'm really casting along a shoreline. But if you're fishing around docks and stuff a lot or target casting a buzzbait, a shorter rod like a 10 to 7 foot rod is really good. I love just going up. You can actually skip a buzzbait really well, especially with the right trailer. If you have one of those amphibian trailers on a buzzbait, it's really flat on the bottom. You can actually skip it if you're decent at skipping. I'm not. I'm okay. But I can skip it under like trees as long as there's a decent gap. I'm not skipping it in like little cracks and stuff. I'm not a pro, but you can skip it under like a tall dock or underneath trees or like a boathouse door or something like that. And it does skip pretty good. And that's like a lure that I don't think a lot of bass see in that situation as a buzzbait. So definitely try that out. All right. We always talk about this. I'm going to go over it really quick because people ask us every single time. And they say, you guys always talk about replacing your hooks. What kind of hook should I get? Let me tell you right now, okay? I'm going to put this all in the show notes. Here's some cool hooks that you can replace your crappy topwater hooks with, and I guarantee will help you catch more fish when the fish are just swatting at your bait. Berkley Fusion hooks. I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure these are actually made by BKK. That's what I've heard. They're dang sharp Berkley Fusion hooks. You can buy them at almost every tackle shop. The Berkley Fusion trebles it's more of a budgety option for replacement hooks. They're really sharp. Like I replace a lot of baits hooks with those. More premium. Me and Andrew are big fans of the Gamakatsu G Finesse hooks. They're more of a thin wire hook. Very strong. They have a slick coating on them. Little pricey.
Really nice for your topwater because sometimes they go on sale. If you see them on sale, pick up a couple packs. But I really like them because they are that thin wire hook. They have a bit more strength than they look like they're going to have. They're designed that way, but it doesn't increase your weight that's on those topwaters. So again, they're still going to float, be buoyant enough, and operate properly without increasing the weight, but you get a bit stronger of a hook if you find that you're bending them out.
Absolutely. Also, I'd like to mention the Berkley Fusion hooks. They also have feathered trebles too. So if you're looking for a replacement feathered treble, they have them too, and they're reasonably priced. One of my favorite hooks is the BKK Spear 21SS. They're brutal. They're super sharp. They're strong. Very good hooks. They're a little bit spendy, but if it's on your favorite topwater lure, that guy, he's been through a lot with you. Get him a new set of hooks. He deserves it. Another feathered treble, which is absolutely fantastic. Big fan of Owner hooks. The Owner Tournament Trailer feathered hooks. I don't know if they're at every store, but they're at Gagnon's, which is the shop that I'm at the most. They're really, really good hooks. And then another really good hook, Mustad Ultra Point, the KVD hooks. Really good hooks. They also have feathered trebles as well. So those are just some of the hooks that we've used as replacements. Generally speaking, any high quality brand of hooks, if you're thinking Owner, Gamakatsu, BKK, the replacement trebles are going to be really good. So just sometimes the stock hooks on lures are meh. So you might want to add some other hooks. Now we're going to go briefly into some questions and opinions. I said on Instagram, give me your opinion or questions about topwater fishing. Got a lot of opinions, which I actually really like. So I'm just going to read them. We've gone a bit over time in this episode. So I'm going to we're going to keep our answers really short. And if you have an opinion that we don't agree with, we're just going to say meh and move on, right, Andrew?
Yeah. Or at least tell you you're wrong. But
yeah. Okay. So Super Sparky 69, he says, Whopper ploppers kind of suck. Popping frogs and spooks 100%. I agree. Popping frogs and spooks are awesome. But Whopper ploppers, I slay on them. So I don't know. Maybe they suck for you. They don't suck for me.
I am immediately against him because he's an electrician.
Yeah, true. Those guys are electricians. They think they're so good. Here's a question from Nihith. He says, should you use a leader with braided line or just run braid? If you're using like a walking bait, it can be advantageous to use a short section of monofilament. But for most other baits like ploppers, buzz baits, spin baits, anything like that, I just run straight braid if I'm using braid. I don't see any problem with it. I don't think the fish really care. That's just my opinion. Truecraft Plumbing Inc. He says, for a plastic frog, my number one is the Zoom Horny Toad. It's a classic. It's probably one of the OGs of of toads, right? It's a great bait. I wish more stores around us carried them.
Yeah, they're not as popular anymore, but they work
They're
well.
popular in the States.
Also,
They're
fellow plumber.
Yeah.
I'm not biased at all. Continue.
All right, Thornburn the Fifth. Nice to hear from him again.
Ooh, Thornburn
So today,
the Fifth.
unfortunately, Ozzy Osbourne passed away today, which is sad news. If you're into that kind of music, I know I have many of Ozzy Osbourne's albums.
I heard multiple people cranking Crazy Train today while driving around. I'm like,
It's true.
man.
This is his question. It's actually very relevant. He says, if Ozzy Osbourne fished with a topwater lure, which one would he choose? It's obviously 100% the Savage Gear topwater bat, but he would try to bite its head off. Here's one from Wes at Wham Baits. He says, question, are the Whamphibians by Wham Baits Canada underrated? Yeah, I'd say they are. I think maybe a lot of people don't fish them because they've never used them before, but I would say they're underrated. Here's a question from Neil. He says, Z-Man, well, it's not a question. This is an opinion. He says, the Z-Man goat toad is literally the goat. I agree with that opinion. That thing is an absolute unit. If I could only have one topwater soft plastic, that's what it would be right there. Carson Lockhart, this is an opinion. He says, buzzbait is underrated. I agree. I don't see a lot of people fishing buzzbaits anymore. I know it was really popular back in the day. I always have one in my box. There's been a few times when I didn't have one that I really... Remember that one time we went and the guys were slamming bass on buzzbaits? They're like, dude, they're slamming buzzbaits. And we didn't have any because we'd packed light. And the buzzbait, it's hard to fit into a tackle tray. After that day, I always pack a buzzbait because they absolutely destroyed us. Bobby D340 says, jitterbugs at first and last light can't go wrong. I agree with that. Jitterbugs, like we mentioned, they're pretty awesome lures. If you don't own one, definitely get one. They're really great baits. And again, topwater lures in general, they're great to use early and late in the day. Here's a good question from Josh Bain. He says, what do you think of the Teckle frog that sounds like a Whopper Plopper? And I think the one he's referring to is the Sprinker frog that I've got right here. It actually has a boot tail in the back. It actually does sound like a Whopper Plopper when you reel it in. We were talking with Travis at Taco Bros a few episodes ago, and he said the guy that invented this, he loves Whopper Ploppers, but he wanted one that was weedless. And he's 100% correct. This thing sounds just like a Whopper Plopper. So far, I've been using this for 2 or 3 trips, and I've caught multiple fish on them. I actually caught one of my biggest bass of the year so far in this lure. Highly recommend it. Great lures. A little pricey, but they work great. So that's what I think about it.
The Teckle are a legit frog. Like they're a bit higher price, but like I said, premium frog.
Yeah, I agree. Here is a question from BH Angler. She says, popper or Whopper Plopper?
I'm partial to popper.
Yeah.
They have different purposes, but I'd sooner keep a popper in my tackle box constantly than a plopper.
I'm more of a plopper guy. I like covering water. I'm not as patient as Andrew, so whatever you're good at, that's what you should get.
I like BFS finesse poppers.
Boring. Here's an opinion from Angelo. He says, Super Spook Jr. He says he got the most bites walking that than I do with other topwaters. That's actually one of my favorite walking baits is the Super Spook Jr. I absolutely love it. It's perfect size. Cast far on spinning gear. Smallmouth and largemouth absolutely love it. And pike too. I've lost a few that pike just bit off, unfortunately. Jeff Penner Fishing. His opinion is ploppers are overrated. I think Jeff Penner is overrated. Just kidding. Ploppers are overrated, but they're overrated in the sense that chatterbaits and stickbaits are overrated. They're overrated for sure, but they catch fish like crazy. That's why they're popular. So I don't know. Here's a good question from Sens Fishing 07. He says, what are your thoughts about the new claptail from Rapala, which is pretty much a Whopper Plopper, but it's got a stainless steel prop on the back, or it's a metal propeller, and then it has a blade on the top, like a spinner blade on the top that as this plopper blade kicks around, it's going to hit this blade on top as it's kind of waking through the water. Everyone's like, oh, it's a copy of the Whopper Plopper. Dude, again, everything's a copy of like original ploppers, but I think it's one of the most innovative plopper style baits that I've seen in recent years. And I'm 100% going to get one. I think that the noise is going to be different. The action is going to be slightly different. And I think the fish are going to absolutely crush it. What do you think?
I think that it won't have as much of a splash as a buzzbait, but buzzbaits have had little clackers and noisemakers in front of their blade for a long time, like different manufacturers. So I think it makes complete sense to have that on a plopper. I think it's gonna do really well.
Yeah, it's like a clacker on a buzzbait, really. Yeah, I'm excited for that. If we didn't get to your question, we apologize. We went really over time on this episode, but when it comes to talking about lures, like we said, we just go over time. That's okay. So hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Again, please write us a review if you haven't written one already. We appreciate it. And also, make sure you check out the show notes. We're going to link a lot of the lures that we talked about, as many as I can link. I can only link so many things in the show notes, but we're going to link all that stuff, as well as our link to our Patreon if you want to support us to help us keep the show going on. Now, to end this episode, as always, we have the quote of the week. And to handle that, we have Andrew.
If you're not fishing topwaters, you're a stinker, because if you fish anything else, you're using the sinker.
Boo.